Hi, YouTube. I mean, why am I talking to YouTube like as a person? But hi, everyone. Hi, everybody on YouTube. Finally did it. Well, not I. We finally did it. Thanks so much to Tanya, my friend Tanya, for making the art for the YouTube. I hope this is edited well because by the time this is out, I'm assuming this is the very first one. I don't know where I'm going to put this opening. I don't know if I'm going to put this on the very first one, or I think I might put it on the newest one, the one I released, which should be episode 6. I don't know, but either way, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And now it's on YouTube, so anyone can listen to it. You don't have to have Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anything else. But yeah, thank you so much. Let's get into the video.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Hi, I'm Angela. I talk a lot and I like anime. So, anyway, let's talk about it. So, A Silent Voice, a movie that everybody knows about and everybody loves. Well, not everybody, but at least anime enthusiasts. It's on Netflix now, so it's more accessible to everyone, including the people who don't watch anime. But I'm going to talk about it because it's a lot of people's favorites. It's one of my favorites as well. So I'm going to start from the beginning and run through A Silent Voice and my thoughts on it and my interpretations of it. So in the beginning, we get a black screen and we get the words "a point of light." This then becomes important towards the end because again we get a point of light, but our main character Shoya Ishida's point of light gets bigger as he goes through the movie and overcomes his struggles. The first thing that we're introduced to the first person actually is Shoya Ishida, our main character, who how do I say this? Let's say trigger warning for suicide. Wants to commit suicide, but then he doesn't go through with it because, or at least from my perspective, he doesn't go through with it because he wants to take responsibility for what he did to I don't know what to call her. Let's say our other main character or our love interest. What should I call her? Shoko Nishimiya. But anyway, so he's saved money up to give to his mum, which is something that we see when in his childhood, because he bullies Nishimiya throughout his not throughout his childhood, in 7th grade elementary. So they were like 11 years old, and he repeatedly broke her hearing aids. So he kind of realized in middle school, or at least from my perspective, that more or less his actions have consequences on other people besides from himself and the person directly involved, so Nishimiya. So he didn't really realize how that affected his mother until he saw his mother give money to Nishimiya's mother. Also, if we're talking about A Silent Voice, which we are, the cinematography and the score, e.g. the music in the background, which is done by Kunsuke Ushio, is amazing. Like every single point in A Silent Voice is like beautifully accompanied with music, and the framing of this movie and it's just amazing. And the director is Naoko Yamada, and I think they did an excellent job on it as well. But one thing I noticed when I was rewatching it, because I don't know if I said this already, this is the third time I've rewatched A Silent Voice, which I didn't notice the first or the second time, is the abundance of water imagery. Like when we when we see the screen a point of light at the beginning of the movie, we hear water droplets, and those water droplets become important like later on and throughout the movie because there's major water imagery. I also did a bit of research on this because we get multiple shots of koi fish or koi, and koi symbolize perseverance. They also symbolize other things, but I think perseverance is important in this movie because Shoya persevered through his emotions and wanting to run away after committing an atrocious act of bullying towards Shoko. So I didn't really notice that, and I didn't bother to think about that when I was watching it the first or the second time. But back to the water imagery, as we know, the water imagery comes from at the start of the show. So we see a lot of koi fish, and we hear a lot of water droplets. and when he jumps into the river after Shoko, because they drop the notebook. Like, water is a perpetual theme, I would say, in A Silent Voice. And obviously water can be seen as like cleansing or refreshing or anything like that. It's also very important in like the balcony scene because he falls into water. And I would even like to say that the main character throughout the movie may be seen as underwater, because when you're underwater, your hearing and your sight is distorted, and you can't you can't see or hear things properly. And that's represented, in my opinion, by also him putting his hands on his ears and the crosses on people's faces, because he kind of refuses blatantly to not see or hear people properly, as if it's like not his choice, like as if you're underwater, which I think is really good imagery. Another reason why I think that was one of the leading factors of him not committing suicide is because it's kind of like he had a flashback to his elementary life, and he kind of realized or remembered more all the horrible things he did to Nishimiya. So that's why I think. But also, the contrast in the... I'm going back to the music. The contrast in the music, it's like quite relaxing, quite chill, and then it skips to more upbeat and like youthful when we're going back to his childhood, which I think is an important contrast, because it's like how... It's kind of like the switch between his childhood self and now his high school self. I'd also like to point out it's a mentality that a lot of people have when he was in elementary and he was a bully. Like, it's better to bully people than to be bullied, because you don't want to be the subject of people's ridicule, which he eventually becomes when Nishimiya leaves and his quote-unquote friends bully him for being a bully, even though they were bullying Nishimiya as well, which is quite interesting. But while Nishimiya's here, she constantly tries to reach out to Shoya, and I think that in a way that Shoko Nishimiya kind of reminds Shoya of himself in a way. They're quite vulnerable in that sense, and also the school bred like a horrible like atmosphere for her, because there was like nobody who really wanted to learn sign language besides from her one friend. I'll talk about her later because can't remember her name, sorry. But anyway, so they kind of sell him out to the teacher when the teacher's all like, oh, who bullied her? And then they're just like, it was him, it was solely him, like nobody else. And this becomes a common thing later in the movie. Like, everybody refuses to take responsibility, including himself in elementary. Later on, he takes responsibility for what he did, but I would say even later in the show that a lot of characters still don't take responsibility for what they did to Nishimiya, which is why Shoya's personal growth and character development is really good, because he does change actively through his actions rather than words. Before Nishimiya leaves, Shoya and Shoko have a very childish fight, which I would say they're children, but they're not like 5, like they're 11 at this point in time, and I feel like you have like a good, not good, but like you can kind of like tell what's right and wrong, like a moral, what's it called, a moral compass. Although, what's 11? Are you like, I think you're 11 in year 7 if we're talking about British things. But anyway, this childish fight, in my opinion, is like the first real interaction that they have with each other, because before then it's just kind of been bullying and nasty remarks, or just her saying sorry, or her not really saying or reacting like in any way. But this fight is when she actively tries to make him understand him by like force. Okay, I know I'm jumping around a lot, but it's just more my thought process, because like while as I connect things, it like I jump around quite a bit, but it'll make sense. Like, I'm still trying to go into chronological order because I'm still talking about their childhood. But next bit, I'm gonna skip to when he decides not to commit suicide and he goes to sign language classes, and he meets Nishimiya for the first time in like years, because they haven't seen each other since like 6th grade. And she isn't mad at him, which I like to notice. She was never mad. She was never like a angry child. She just kind of didn't really understand, if that made sense. But even now, like, she could have screamed at him, she could have like got really mad at him, but she just tried to say something, and when she couldn't really think of anything to say, she ran away. which shows again her personality as she kind of runs away from like the issue rather than like standing her ground and like actually talking it out. In this scene, Shoya also gives back Shoko her notebook that they had in 6th grade, which people wrote like kind of nasty things in, which I think shows care and repentance, because he kept it for that long and wanted to give it back to her. Also, he's a very responsible person, unlike a lot of the other characters, because he has a job and he was saving up money to give to his mom, and he sold a lot of things that were important to him, like his manga, just to repay his mum back for the things that he did in elementary. But I'm going to talk about the crosses now. There's never, at no point in the movie was there ever a cross on Shoko's face, and I think that's important because that means he, as much as he didn't want to, he's always been listening and seeing her like fully and properly, unlike other characters in the show. So there are crosses on people's faces when he refuses to see them or hear them, which is highlighted in the balcony scene, because he says that he wants to like I'm kind of jumping around again, because in the balcony scene he promises, well, he's kind of speaking to God but more of himself. He like promises that he'll not run away and he'll look at people properly and he'll see people properly, and there's the physical symbolization of putting his hands over his ears. Now I'm going to skip forward to when he meets Nagatsu-kun, and when he first meets him, well, actually, he saw him many more times. He saw him at school before. He had the cross on his face, so he, again, is one of the people that he chose to not acknowledge. But I'm going to say the first time that they really like met was when his bike was getting stolen. And I really like this about Shoya. He kind of has this like funny self-awareness of like the situations, and he sometimes like pulls himself out, and I feel like I do that, like when I notice something funny that's happening or something that just doesn't feel or seem real, like I have the tendency to like call it out. But anyway, it's as if he doesn't really want to go help Nagatsuku, but like he does help him in the end, and he does it non-violently, which I think is interesting because it shows facets of his personality. Because I don't know, other main characters might have just like punched him in the face or something and like ran away in like an epic like chase scene or something, but he just like kind of takes the fall and gives the thief his bike instead of letting them take Nagatsuku's bike. I also think that this scene plays into the realism of Shoya, because no normal person, well, I feel like, is gonna like go punch a bully. Like they're gonna try and save the person or take care of a situation in the most calm way possible, which feeds into the realism of all these characters, because they're real, that they feel real, they're lovable. Like these could be people that really exist. But if I'm going back to Shoya's personality, in the scene where he finds Yuzu in the play area, after she's posted the picture of him, she's asking him why he's not angry, and it's as if he can't force himself to be angry, which is very different and a very clear juxtaposition to when he was little and he was like screaming and was like really loud and extroverted, you know what I mean? But now he can't even bring himself to get angry at somebody who's like clearly wronged him. And we kind of learn his motivation in the movie when Yuzu stays over at his house and they're walking home in the rain, and she kind of asks him like why, like, and then he says, I just don't want to make Nishimiya cry anymore. And later on in the show, he says, I want Nishimiya to like herself. So his motives are all revolve around Nishimiya, kind of. But through him wanting to help Nishimiya, he kind of helps himself, which is really interesting because it's like support and how people can help each other without even realizing it. Okay, I know I said I would do this chronologically for ease, but I'm probably going to not do that and just talk about characters when they come to mind, because Yuzu, that reminds me, I have a lot to say about her. So she didn't go to school, and the first time we're introduced to her, she pretends that she's Shoko's boyfriend so that she can get Shoyo away from her, which shows her a kind of protective nature. Even though she acts like really cool and really tough, like she still deeply cares about her sister. And she also has a very strong connection with her grandma, which is why when the grandma dies, it kind of pushes Yuzuru but Yuzu, out of her like comfort zone so that she can like kind of start going to school. And it's also when she shows her emotions, because she says to Shoya that she's scared, which is kind of one of the first times you see like just her raw emotions. And at the end of the movie, she eventually goes back to school, even though she's not really conventionally good at it. And she even says after the balcony scene that she put because she's a photographer, she put the pictures up in the room or in their house just because she thought it would make Shoko want to live, which didn't work, and she's struggling because she doesn't know what she can do to help her older sister. But back to Shoya, in the scene where it's like summer vacation, he kind of goes overkill because, as I mentioned earlier, his motives is he doesn't want to make Shoko cry anymore. So I feel like in summer he doesn't really know what to do to like help them, which kind of reminds me in a way of Yuzu, because like they don't really know what to do, so they're just trying anything they can. But in his case, it just kind of felt like overkill because you could tell he was just kind of needlessly trying to make the summer as happy as possible, which in a way is also quite sweet. But back to the balcony scene, because I feel like not everything revolves around the balcony scene, but like it's quite an important scene. So in the balcony scene, he falls into water, and like I think I said earlier, it brings back the water imagery, because when he falls in, it's cold, and he thinks it's cold, and then it gets warm as in his blood, which I think is an excellent the cinematography there, and you can see the blood rising as he says it's warm. But honestly, I think the first time I watched The Silent Voice, I would have definitely cried at the balcony scene, because I was convinced that one of the characters were going to die, and because of the characterization and how good it is, like you form such a bond with these characters that to see them like die actually hurts. And that's good writing, in my opinion, even if it's like a movie and it's quite short. If you can make your audience feel what the characters are feeling in such a short space of time, then you've written your character like really well. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot, this is quite jolty, but like the theme park scene, because it's like the first time that he's been like happy in like ages, and he even says feels like, why is he allowed to be this happy? And I've got to mention, throughout the show, some of the crosses fall off people's face. Like for Kawai, the cross falls off but then it comes back on. Same for Ueno, the cross falls off but it comes back on. And every time the cross falls off, there's like a single monotone note that plays, kind of like a chime, and it feels really like it kind of slows down the pace of the entire movie, because like it just to focus really does focus you on the fact that he's starting to see/hear that person properly. But then it like quickly goes back on, like for when he sees Shimada working at the theme park, he just kind of clams up all over again, because he's instantly reminded of Elementary, which is where he committed such bad things, so he really doesn't feel like he deserves to be as happy as he is anymore. And that's also when we like get the bit where Ueno, I can kind of see her point of view in like some ways, because I don't know, actually. I might revise that actually, because she's just kind of refusing to understand Nishimiya, or at least try to, which is why at the end it's a bit nicer, because when she actually bothers to learn the sign language for Baka / so idiot, it kind of shows that she does actually care, or she is starting to care. She just really couldn't be bothered to take into consideration anything to do with Nishimiya, which is quite selfish, but maybe she thought that Nishimiya was taking away Ishida from her. I think I'm going to talk about the ending now, because it's a really good ending, and the first time I watched it I kind of forgot about it. Like when I watched it, I could only really remember up to the balcony scene, because I think it made me that upset that like everything after that was just a blur to me. But the ending, in my opinion, is really good. Like it not good. I have better vocabulary than that. I just couldn't. Oh man. But anyway, back to the ending. So he wants to like face his fears, and he even asks Nishimiya. He says, "I want you to help me live." So it's like he's done running away. He's done not looking at people, not seeing not hearing people, he wants to face his fears. But when he goes back to school, he kind of has a relapse in his fears. And then that's when Nagatsuku comes to help him and like talk about how much that he missed him and that he's glad that he's okay, which kind of reminds him that there's people out there who love him and want him to succeed, which again shows his very human-like personality, because it's not like after he comes out of hospital he could just instantly go back to his old life like everything was normal. Like, he was going to be scared, he was bound to be. But the ending scene, which is one of the most beautiful, the ending, no, I would call it a full scene. The ending like bit is like amazing, and I here's what I wrote down in my notes. I wrote, hands off ears. He puts his head up, all the crosses fall off, and he sees the wider world for what it is, and he starts to cry uncontrollably, a spill of his emotions. And I think that this links back to when I said he couldn't get angry at Yuzu further up, because he couldn't, in a way he kind of was suppressing a lot of his emotions. So at the ending it's like everything he's built up since like elementary just spills out uncontrollably in the form of tears. Again, water imagery. And then we get the black screen with a point of light flashing, switching between all the characters he's become friends with and gained a closer relationship throughout the show. So we get Nagatsuku, we get Ueno, we get Kawai, we get Shimada, and finally we get Nishimiya. And his point of light gets bigger and expands, and that's the final scene that we see in the entire movie. And it's just very cyclical. It brings you back to the beginning, even though when I first watched this I barely even noticed it because I was less observant. And to be honest, I'm not even going to try and be like I'm this hyper analyst person. It takes me like a while to notice things and understand things, and I kind of take things for face value and don't notice a lot of things, which is why rewatching things, although I don't typically tend to rewatch a lot of things, but since I'm starting a podcast, I'm probably going to since I'm running this podcast, I'm going to have to rewatch quite a lot of my favorites if I want to talk about them, to re-notice things and talk about new things, you know what I mean, that I didn't notice the first time. But when I rewatched A Silent Voice, it doesn't get old, it just feels timeless, and it was so good to the point that it got nominated for an award and won Best Animation in the year Best Animation of the Year in the 26th Japan Movie Critics Award. So it really goes to show that a lot of people enjoyed and appreciated this movie, and it came out in 2016 and was available in the UK in 2017. And I personally, I don't really mind sub or dub, but I watched The Silent Voice in sub. The voice actors are so good at their job. So the voice actor for Shoya is Miyu Iruo, and the voice actor for Shoko is Saori Hayami. Yeah, Hayami. And they just did an excellent job of conveying their characters' feelings throughout the entire movie. And I feel like that's really important. Well, here's my general wrap up, I guess. I've always loved The Silent Voice. I can't wait to get like posters and that to go in my room when I eventually move. But yeah, and also I found this out when I was researching, because like I really don't like research for things, but like if I want this to make sense, like I have to do research. So the creator of the manga, Yoshitoki Oima, wrote To Your Eternity, and like the anime for To Your Eternity I think it came out this year, because I saw quite a lot of TikToks about it and people saying that it was really good. And to know that it's from the same author as A Silent Voice, or A Voice's Form actually, which I think is a very interesting differentiation, because A Silent Voice and A Voice's Form sound very like I feel like they have very different meanings. But anyway, to know that it's from the same author as A Silent Voice is like really, it's kind of motivated me to watch it now. So I don't know if I'll watch it today or if I'll watch it like this summer, but I'll probably end up watching it this summer, because I think there's only like 13 episodes. So I'm really excited to see why everybody likes it and what the author has come up with. Also, she's a woman, by the way, so I'd like to throw that out there. Love manga slash anime written by women. They're always really good, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for Oima. Well, I had a great time talking about A Silent Voice. So anyway,
Here,
see you
the Eagle has landed.
Well, thanks everybody for listening on YouTube. I hope I'll put all the credits. Maybe I'll make my own end screen. Who knows? This is still quite an experimental project, but thank you for listening. Yeah, consider this now. Leave a like and a comment down below. Really excited to hear all of your guys' thoughts on it, what I can do to make it better, any shows or topics you want me to cover. Well, not topics, I'm not a topic podcast, but like a shows or movies, as long as they're not too long and they're reasonable, I'll consider doing them. So thank you, bye, have a good day, week, month, year, life. So anyway, bye.